Hi everyone, and very welcome to yet another episode of Captains Speaking. My name is Peter Hörnfeldt, and as always, I have the lovely Ben Watts with me. How are you, Ben?
Well, yeah, very well, very well. Welcome everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. It is good to be back. Peter, how are you?
I am very good. I have to say, very good. I am feeling alert. I'm feeling that the spring is coming. I'm feeling that, I have very little to complain about. And also, we've just come off a wonderful Easter vacation, which,
Nice.
by the way, for everyone who's wondering, I know that we have been away for about 3 weeks now. We've had Easter in between, and we've also had the launch of my new channel, Black Box, which happened last Thursday. So my deepest apologies for everyone who was disappointed that we didn't release an episode last week, but here we are. So hopefully you will enjoy this. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm usual. It's busy. I had a bit of time off over Easter, which was nice, to be fair. So I had all the family around, and it was just nice to have a bit of time away from work. So that was nice. But yeah, back into the throes now. So busy. A lot of time in the sim, and we're at that time of year, as you know, you will remember, Petter, where we're doing the fire training, the recurrent fire training now, which is So for everyone watching, every 3 years, all pilots have to undergo recurrent fire training. So we put them in a chamber, and we've got a mock-up aircraft, actually, an old 737-600 that we use, and we put them in there. We run certain drills. We got a smoke machine in there, and we run through certain drills to give them some exposure, what it's like being in a cabin with smoke, with real smoke, and the drills. And then we put them in a fire chamber where we can actually light a fire, and they've got to extinguish it. So we typically end up doing that after sim sessions or before them. So the days turn a little bit longer. So I did that this morning. So I was in the sim this morning doing a training session for 2 crew, which was great. And at the end of that, fire training. So yeah, bit of a mix at the minute. Flying is, we're doing a lot of training. So I'm spending a lot of time training at the moment, but not a huge amount of flying. But it's good.
I mean, that's good news. It's in the current world we're living in, hearing expansion, hearing people getting jobs. It's actually great news to hear.
It is. There's a lot of recruitment going on. As long as it stays that way, it's great, because there's so many new people coming through, which is good.
And are you feeling like I started feeling when I kind of left it off, that you just feel older and older because the cadets just stays the same age? They stay being like 21.
I know what I hate. What I really don't like is, when you're signing their licenses, you got to go through that. You got to check their passports. Yeah, you got to check their passports against their license. It's part of our job as a type rating examiner to check their paperwork is correct, and it has their date of birth on it. Yeah. And you're looking at some of the dates now, and they're like, 2000 and 2001, 2002 birthdays, and you're like, oh my God.
You're starting to feel like those old captains that we used to fly with when we started. It was like, when you were born, I already was doing my military service.
Yeah. I refuse to go there. I'm not. I'm staying young.
No. For us, age is just a number, my friend. It's just a number.
For sure.
No. But I mean, the reason I'm saying that I'm happy to hear that there's a lot of recruitment going on is that obviously we're once again finding ourselves in a very difficult kind of geopolitical time at the moment, and it's going to have repercussions on our occupation for sure. Which is kind of one of the things that I wanted to start this podcast talking about, because as the Strait of Hormuz stays closed, and now when we're recording this, as far as I know, not only is Iran blocking it, but now the United States are blocking it as well. That is going to start having ramifications soon on our industry.
Yeah.
Have you heard what have you been hearing?
I mean, you hear different things from different airlines. I think from chatting in crew rooms and briefing rooms amongst other pilots, there's just that same vibe that I remember we got as the world started to hear about COVID. Which I hate to say, but I remember being in the briefing rooms then going, "Oh, I hope this doesn't kick off." And if it comes from China, you can imagine it hitting Europe, how that would affect us, and on all of that. There's similar kind of conversations now, but obviously coming from the Middle East, and how long can this Strait of Hormuz stay closed before we start seeing things like fuel shortages, airlines start after cancelling flights? What effect is that going to have on us? How long is it going to go on for? They're at the back of your mind a little bit. And I can kind of sense it with crew. We're all carrying on as normal. In Europe, we're fortunate in that way. But I know a lot of airline bosses have said that if it carries on in Europe till kind of May-ish, maybe June, it will start having an effect, and there will be flights getting cancelled effectively.
No, and
Yeah.
we should be very clear that obviously we're not saying that this is the primary
Mm-mm.
concern with war, right?
No, no, no.
Not at all. But we're talking. This is an aviation podcast after all, so we have to talk about the ramifications on our
Mm,
occupation. And even though COVID was a completely different ball game because it
mm,
stopped the entire society, what I think people don't really realize is that while only about 20% of the world's crude oil comes out of the Strait of Hormuz, the oil is not that's produced in different parts of the world is just not made equally, right? So the oil that is coming out from that region is lighter. It's pretty suitable for creating things like diesel and jet A fuel, which is what we fly on. So even though it's 20% of the overall output, it's going to be a bigger percentage of the jet fuel. So jet fuel is going to be hit harder, quicker than, for example, your gas at your gas pumps will be.
yeah. Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, aircraft we use a lot of fuel. I mean, a
Yeah.
737 is 30, taken down about 35 to 40 kilos per minute as we're flying. So that's one of your like half of your gas tank every minute of a normal car. So it will have impacts on us, and again, it's going to be down to resilience amongst the crews. Unfortunately, if we start to see cancellations and airlines kind of starting to kind of stop their operations in order to hoard their cash, in order to save up on cash, it's going to hit us quickly.
Yeah. And I think it's so uncertain. The world could go so many different angles at the moment. And as you say, there's far bigger problems out there. But I just get that vibe from the aviation perspective. There is that little sense of unease at the moment amongst crew because we just don't know. We just don't know where it's going to lead.
No.
But at the moment, it's full steam ahead. Lots of recruitment, lots of flights going on. So hopefully it will stay that way.
Yeah.
But it also affects us from out, not us in the aviation industry, but if it affects us, it will also affect those traveling with us, those people that we take. And, I know that's affected you, Petter, isn't it? You're supposed to be off somewhere.
Yeah, so I mean, we have loads of friends down in the Middle East
Mm,
who fly for various airlines down there. So me and my family tends to go down there and visit them on fairly regular intervals when we can. So we had a trip that was planned for Dubai over Easter. Um, that obviously didn't happen because neither do we want to put ourselves down there like your brother's
mm,
family got to experience. Nor do we, you know, nor do we wish we don't want to put ourselves in the uncertainty that comes with traveling to the region at the moment. But my wife has another trip planned in a few months. No, sorry, in a few weeks actually, in the beginning of May, that she had planned with a friend since like a while back. Looking forward to first trip with a friend away from the family for ages, and now we just don't know if those flights will be working either. And of course, this is on the scale of problems, it's very very far down. But of course, I mean, this is just a preview of what might happen if fuel starts running low in Europe, for example. All of the people, I mean, in Europe, we do travel a lot.
we do.
The low fare airlines, EasyJet, Ryanair, Wizz Air, all of them have enabled people to be able to travel quite freely
Mm,
across the European continent and relatively cheaply.
mm.
But there's no question that that could stop just because of the lack of fuel, but it also might not become as cheap for years. Like this if the fuel price stays as high as it does, I know some of the airlines have been smart enough
Yeah.
to actually buy up fuel in
They've
beforehand.
hedged.
They've hedged
Yeah.
their fuel. And for those of you who doesn't know what that means, it's a way for the airlines to go out on the market and buy futures, basically buy an amount of oil or fuel at a set price that's typically a little bit higher than the market price at that time. But by doing that, they're also assuring what their fuel cost will be for as long as they feel like buying. So if you want to buy at that price for 3 years, it's going to be higher. 5 years, it's going to be even higher. But of course, what you do is you kind of insure yourself against these enormous spikes.
Mm, mm.
So if I think Ryanair has done that to a certain
Yeah.
extent, and that of course is the person who did that should get a medal like, at this point. But there are definitely a lot of airlines who have not, which means that they need to follow as the oil price goes up, and with that comes the ticket price. I mean, the fuel price is, I think, the biggest if not the second biggest cost that any airline has.
Yes. Yep. Shot a good Mentor Now video on that recently, better.
Very good. You see?
Yeah, to keep
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, keep me on my feet. No, but so that, and I mean that might change the whole way that the economy works. And and of course, with that, as everyone would have known by now, comes everything else. I mean, the price of actually transporting goods, food, everything basically. Inflation is what we're talking about. We're talking about price increases straight up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's already having. We're seeing it in the news. I know the news. You can look at the news from so many different angles, depending on whether they're left, right. But there's a lot coming through in the UK at the moment on the main news channels, releasing information from like ex-military commanders or even current people in government now, telling the public that we need to be prepared.
Mm.
We need to be prepared for shortages potentially, because it's not just fuel that comes out of the Middle East. There's things, ingredients for fertilizer and so on, which we rely on to grow crops. And I certainly don't want to be the doom spreader here, but it's better to sometimes be prepared and not have to use it than vice versa.
This is not doom spreading though, because in Sweden, for example, we have for decades had the government telling us that you need to have at home
Mm.
food for at least 5 to 10 days or something
Mm.
like that, right? You need to be able to feed your family for X amount of days in case there will be some kind of crisis and you won't be able to either get out of the house, or you might not be able to reach the stores, or the stores might not have food, right? And I think that looking from an aviation perspective, if we just go back to what we do in our daily life, like when we plan to fly into a place, we hope that we are going to go on land and the weather is going to be fine. But we also have alternates,
Yeah.
and we have reserves in order to make sure that if there are delays, it doesn't bother us. And I think that's something that I think everyone should just use in their daily life as well. Like, plan your life in a certain way, but make sure that you have off ramps. Make sure that you have alternatives. So, and that does not mean that everyone should go out and buy toilet paper in bulk now. You can use a towel, like that. That I thought it was so funny when that happened in the beginning of COVID, and everyone, like, the one thing that people wanted was toilet paper. It was just, I mean, I understand it from a personal point of view that people just, toilet paper is one of those things that you see your life changing in a way that you do not want,
Yeah.
not being able to use toilet paper, and you're like, I'm going to avoid that by doing this. But no, don't go out and panic buy everything, but do buy a little bit of canned goods. Have some rice, some pasta, some flour, some salt, some stuff back home. Just the bare minimums that you need in order to make a nutritious meal for a couple of days.
Yeah, and the UK, in the UK, they've got a campaign out as well. It's not linked to the war necessarily, but they've put out campaigns saying, "Be prepared." Have things like wind-up torches, so you don't need batteries.
Hmm.
Wind-up radios, like you said, canned UHT milk, canned goods, pasta. Just have a bit of a supply, water, just in case. And I think it's just changing that mindset. We've been so fortunate for so long. We've kind of been spoiled to a degree, haven't we, as humanity in the West, where everything's just next day delivery, instant availability.
Yeah.
Uh,
We've been extremely spoiled. And
mm,
we can see one thing that I think we should learn from this is just how fragile modern
mm,
society is. I mean, it just takes one man coming up with a very bad idea
yeah,
to just suddenly, like, roil the entire globe and the way that we do things, right?
yeah,
And you can say whatever you want about that, but the fact is that I think this is what we should learn from it, which is like, just make sure that you have the bare necessities so that you don't have to panic when you were planning to eat dinner and you were planning to go to the store, but the store was empty. So now you're hungry, right? If you can go home and you have, I mean, I have a barbecue at home, and some Botano bottles for my barbecue, right? So worst case scenario, I'm going to use my barbecue to boil my pasta
yeah,
and whatever. And luckily in Andorra, where I live, we can use tap water or go out into the stream and get water if
yeah,
worst comes to worst,
yeah,
so that you have those kind of essentials. And
mm,
then, with pasta, rice, and some tuna or whatever, you get quite far,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
we're having the same conversation at home literally just before I shot this podcast. Very bizarre, but yeah, barbecues, gas barbecues, double benefits to be had.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's once again, it's going back to just having alternates and reserves,
Yeah.
and that's it. And it might be for many different reasons. Now, this might be avoided, but the next crisis we've seen in 6 years now, we've seen COVID, and we've seen this, and we've seen some pretty nasty stuff in between.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there's no question that it can happen.
Yeah. So why not learn from it? Why not? Yeah. So we're definitely employing that. We're having some reserves. So we've got nothing major, but just a few bits stored away in case we need it, like you said. So
And having said that as well, one thing that I really want to avoid is people going and like panic buying stuff,
yeah.
because that creates a problem in itself. It's the same with fuel. I mean,
Mm.
we're talking about fuel shortages now. As soon as you do that, you'll see people start to line up for the fuel pumps. And I
Mm.
mean, in UK, we saw that a few
We
years
had it.
ago, where there was a run on the fuel stations without there being a shortage, but it created a shortage.
They created it. All it was I think it was BP. I might be wrong. Those of you in the comments will let me know, I'm sure. But from memory off the top of my head, there was some kind of tweet or announcement from one of the fuel companies saying, we don't think we've got a shortage, but we should be fine. Something along those lines. But people interpreted it, uh-oh, there's going to be a shortage. And they went out, and I remember where I lived, you just couldn't get fuel. It was just everywhere you went were lines and lines of cars outside petrol stations where you wait for an hour and then they would close for no reason other than the fact that they thought there might be a
Yeah,
shortage.
this is the same psychology that's behind things like bank runs. So this is where obviously the authorities plays a huge role. Where they have to go out and just calm things down and say we have plenty of fuel, don't worry. And they only by saying that, people will like, I don't really feel like sitting for an hour in a fuel queue anyway, so I'm not going to, and then everything disappears. But we have to. This is why little by little people should just be buying up on these stuff and have them at home,
Yeah.
and that's it, I think.
And talking of being prepared,
Yeah.
those for the regular listeners, you'll know that I've been flying, and occasionally, more recently than not, well, more recently than I have done in the past, I've actually been stuck. I've been stuck overnight for various reasons. I've gone down route. Most of the time I fly, I'll be back at home. But occasionally I'll go and I'll get stuck for a variety of reasons. And I have to overnight. And it's a pain for a number of reasons. But one of them is because you're not planning an overnight, I don't have clothes. So you end up having to have breakfast the next morning in your clothes you wore for 12 hours flying the day before.
Yeah, been there.
Being there, yeah, I think anyone that flies can kind of resonate with this. But anyway, I've always thought, it'd be great to carry some clothes with me, but I don't fly that often. And when I do fly, it's rare to get overnight. So I don't want to carry a separate bag. But today's sponsor, Petter,
Yeah.
Extra,
Yay!
which sent me this, which is superb. Now, if you don't know what this is one of their new vacuum bags. And I've seen vacuum bags before. We've all seen them. They're often, especially the cheap ones, are not great. But this one here, I thought, you know what? This could be useful. And I remember I've got it here. I thought, I'm going to try packing in jeans, t-shirt, hoodie. Can I get this compacted enough? Because what it does, you get a little motor and it sucks all the air out. And I thought, if that could fit in my flight bag, that'd be awesome. And sure enough, it got smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm thinking, this is awesome, because the little pump literally sucks the life out of this stuff. And it's tiny. And I can actually fit this in my flight case now, because it's so thin, and I can go flying with this with me. And because it's the way it's made, it's got sealed seams, so it doesn't leak like the cheap ones you get. You come back to it a week later and it's reinflated. It's like semi-transparent as well, so it's got a frosted kind of finish, so you can see what's in there. So you haven't got to rummage around. So you can kind of just open it up, grab what you need, put it back again. So it's a great thing to have with you.
Awesome. No, I actually used that myself when I was traveling just a few weeks ago, and it is, even if you're traveling normally, you get so much more stuff in it, and it feels really premium. But I didn't get this one. This is the new one that you got.
Yes,
Again,
the new
you got it and I didn't. But I always, as always, I have the extra wallet instead, which is awesome. Like, I use this thing all the time, and RFID protection to make sure that no one comes and skims your card. This pop-up mechanism, superb. Super nice. I love this kind of like carbon design on this one, but it comes in different colors as well. And it also has a tracker card, so I can find it when I've lost it, which I do frequently. Lifetime warranty on it. And guys, if you want to check out Extra and their awesome products and thank them for making sure that we can continue making this podcast, then know that they have a Mother's Day sale coming up, which is up to 45% off site-wide. And if you use my code, then you get a further 20% off. And you need to go to partner.exter.com/mentor podcast. That partner.exter.com/mentor podcast. There's a link to it if you're watching this on YouTube. Please use that one because they're tracking to see whether or not,
Yeah.
you guys are listening to us.
And make sure you use the code captain, because you'll get the code, you'll get the discount.
And use the code captain. Perfect. So thank you, Exter. Now let's get back to kind of the main story that we want to talk about today.
Mm.
I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I definitely have. So there was some crazy video that has been all over the internet for the last day or two of a Boeing 757-200 from Icelandair
Yes.
that was flying deck level, like 328 feet above the ground over an Icelandic island, over a village, over a town in Iceland. It was filmed from multiple different directions. The latest I saw was actually from inside of the aircraft, so it was
Oh,
full
yeah.
of passengers.
Mm.
And it like, to give you a little bit of background to this, because I've been digging into it. This happened on Icelandair flight 521 on the 11th of April, so just a couple of days ago. It was a flight that was going from Frankfurt to Keflavik, which was the cruise home base. And they were coming in for an approach for runway 01 in Keflavik, but then all of a sudden the aircraft just deviated away from its planned route. It got down to about 1,500 feet, according to Flight Radar 24 data, but that data actually stopped. And we don't know why that stopped, if it was because the transponder was turned off or if it was because there was no ADS-B stations that could actually pick up the data. We don't know, right? But we do know that it lost the tracking when this aircraft was at the lowest point. But it flew in over this Jaime Island or something like that. I'm sure someone in Iceland can correct me how you're going to be pronouncing it. Where it did this flyby, just 300 feet of the deck, loads of like mountains in the foreground and houses that you can literally see people standing doing their dishes in. And then it climbed away back up again once it passed this island up to 5,000 feet, and it executed a normal approach into 01 and landed. What we've been able to find out so far is that this was the captain's very last flight before retirement. He's been a senior captain for the Icelandair, flown commercially for 40 years, and he's turning 65 today, I think, on the day that we record this. So, spontaneous thoughts?
Yeah, thoughts. I've seen from what I've seen from other people's reactions, first of all, is everything from hell yeah, that's cool, through to head in hands, oh my goodness, what on earth have you just done?
Yeah.
And I think I'm more in that camp. But I get the reason why he wanted to do it, and there often are, you often do see occasional flybys or, down the runway maybe, or you might see something, but the point there is it's all prearranged. That's the key thing. If anything's going to be done that's non-standard, it needs to be planned, well thought out, approved from everybody, from the airline to the aviation authority to the airport. And that's the way we keep it safe. There's parameters. When someone goes off script like this, suddenly you're out in the bundy and all bets are off. You're opening yourself up to a huge amount of risk, although it looks simple and it thankfully was safe. It was landed safely. It, to me, as a professional pilot, it just goes against everything that we train from that perspective.
Yeah, I get a little bit sad when I see something like this. Like I see it and I understand it, just like you say. Like he wanted to go out with a bang, not a literal one, but an actual. Like he wanted. This was his hometown where he had grown up as a child,
Mm.
and he wanted to go and say like a last hurrah before he landed for his
Yeah.
last ever time in his career. So yeah, do I understand it? Absolutely. But just like you point out, this is not what he is paid for, right?
Oh.
And most people, when they do their very last flight, the airline will honor them in some way. Most of the times the base captain, whatever, knows that this is the last flight. Maybe they'll have the fire brigade standing up and giving a salute, or they're just waiting in the crew room when they're arriving. There's going to be something, right? But the point I want to make is that it's going to end up being like this happy semi-sad final of a very successful professional life, where you're like, oh, the tears are going to come, and you're gonna go out and you're gonna leave your bag for the last time, and you're gonna be honored by your colleagues for sure. But now, because Icelandair has been very clear on this, their chief flight officer came out and said that we are going to be investigate. We see this as something that's very serious. We're going to investigate it internally, and some sources are saying that the airline has even filed a police report. Right,
Yeah, I've heard that.
and if that's true, what's going to happen now is that instead of this being a joyous occasion and a kind of celebration of this person's successful, safe career, there's now going to be police investigations, and he's going to be remembered for this.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
remember, you are only as good as your last flight.
Yes.
Ever. Like that's something that someone told me from the very beginning of my career, is that it doesn't matter how good you are for 40 years, if the last thing you do is something that causes an issue, that's you, right? And
Mm.
this is what this guy has done. And on top of that, the question that I asked myself when I saw it, because remember, if he was down to 300 feet, even if it was at 500 feet, this is breaking aviation rules.
Yeah.
This is not like you are at a very minimum, from what I can remember. Not that I've ever been close, but at the very minimum, you need to be 1,000 feet over populated rural areas, right? You can go down to 500 feet over like forest and stuff. Normally that's VFR flights doing that, not instrument flight, not airliners ever. But you could, right? But then it's 1,000 feet over other populated areas, and there's many reasons for that. But if this was not followed, it means that he has broken the rules, and he's not alone in the cockpit, is he?
No, this is the other thing I was thinking, because it is a law. Exactly, it's not just a procedure. This is a law, as much as any other law is a law. You can't just go and break these. And my thoughts initially did go to the FO.
Yeah.
And depending, and this is going to hang on the voice recorder, which from what I've heard, that they've pulled the CVR, the cockpit voice recorder CB. I've heard rumors, I don't know, but if they have, I think his future or her future will depend on that, on how well they protested.
Yeah,
because that captain will have potentially ruined that first officer's career.
That's the thing. I mean, it was his last flight, but
yeah,
he could well have put this poor person in a position where it's also that person's last flight.
Yeah,
right. It's heartbreaking. It's irresponsible. It's like, I understand all of these people on internet, on social media, in the comments, who said, hell yeah, that's cool, that's great, just let him be, her last hurrah, hey ho. But the thing, you will notice this if you go in and you read those comments. If there's a professional pilot in there, they will not say that. Anyone who has insight into the industry will not, either they will be quiet, or they will say something along the line of what we are saying now, right? And that is because aviation fundamentally builds on the trust of the flying public, and it builds on us following, that trust is built on us following rules and regulations, because that gives us margins. And margins is what we can use when things go wrong. So when the shit hits the fan, in this case, two very literal fans, and over a fishing village somewhere out over Iceland, it's not like there's not going to be loads of seagulls and stuff at 300 feet over there, especially when a big ass aircraft is flying towards them. That's what makes them fly up. So you could put yourself in a position where you suck in seagulls at 300 feet over that city. Now you have nowhere to go, and you will end up in that city.
You've got seconds at that point, haven't you? If a double engine flame out, or even the big reduction in thrust, you've got seconds before you're on the ground.
Exactly, and this is why this is what professional pilots will be seeing. They will be seeing a huge reduction in safety margins, right? And that might work out fine. In this case, it worked out fine. No one got hurt. The people on the ground probably thought it was super cool. Everyone that's seeing it on the internet thinks that it's super cool, but it sets a precedence.
It does set a precedent. And the point worth making here is that there'll be people going, oh yeah, rules are rules. And, they're there to, they're a pain in people's backsides. But the rules in aviation are there. They're written in blood.
Yeah.
They're there because something has happened down the line.
I mean, I can hear that's the problem with doing a lot of these accident investigation documentaries, is that you start hearing your own
Mm,
voice when things start to go wrong. And I could hear myself easily starting
mm,
to narrate this. And
mm,
at this time, the captain decided to go down to 330 feet to say bye on his very last flight. What he didn't know was
mm.
ahead of him was a flock of seagulls. You could hear it, and I can feel the hair standing up on my arms as I'm saying it, because I know that this is not even it's not even a remote possibility. It's an actual possibility. It
Yeah.
doesn't require five things to go wrong. It requires one thing to go wrong. This is why you don't put yourself in a position like this, and you don't put your colleagues in a position like this, and your passengers who've paid to be safely brought from A to B.
And the irony there is that this captain has flown, from what I heard, for 40 years. So he's kept his operational. I assume it's a him. People refer him as
Yeah,
him.
I've heard
Yeah,
referred to him. I'm not sure, but that's what I think.
that's what I've heard. He's got to that point where he's can hang up his hat and gone, I've traveled for 40 years and kept everybody safe. And the irony there now is he's ended that with the complete opposite.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
now it's going to be on a mentor pilot short video soon, because I'm making one of those, and we are doing this on Captain Speaking, and there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people who are going to have this comment on him. What you want as a professional pilot, what I wanted was to be able to hang up my hat after a career well done, where no one really knows my name from a professional standpoint, other than that was a nice dude to fly with. He was safe and reasonably nice to fly with. I liked him. That's it. You don't want anything more than that. That's the peak of what you like. There's no medals being given out. It's just like it was safe and it was good. So yeah, that's why when I saw it and I started to see these comments coming in and stuff, sadness.
and it'd be interesting to see how this plays out now with regards to how the law is applied. How do they is there going to be a prosecution? How do they, because he has broken rules. There's no doubt about that. The law has been broken. And it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out from a first officer's perspective as well.
Oh yes,
What's happened? Is it career ending? Is there legal implications to them as well? It'd
I,
be fascinating to see, but I just hope that FO protested.
I do. I hope so as well. I really hope that they said I don't want to do
Mm.
this. I
And it's not easy though, is it? We've
no.
been, both of us, I'm sure.
That's the thing, because it is super hard to make that statement.
Mm.
It's super hard to, because this first officer might not have known how low this person wanted to go,
No, he
right?
probably wasn't briefed.
No, and there's there's many facets to this. But if this is a person who people who do these kind of things, sometimes it's the kind of people that are a little bit harder. They have their ideas, they want to do their idea. I mean, a person like you and me,
Mm.
we would never have done this ever. I
Mm.
can tell it now. I was like, even if the idea would have popped into my head,
Yeah.
I would have said to my first officers, "Listen, I have an idea. Why don't we disconnect and we fly like a flyby of my hometown over there?" And the first officer would have like, "Really?" And I was like, "No, actually, no, that doesn't sound like a good idea." And that would have been it, you
Yeah.
know. But this person actually did it, right? So it was probably hard for the first officer to speak up in the first place. But I really hope that they have, and I agree with you. I My experience with Icelandair is that it is an excellent airline, right? An excellent airline, from crew resource management to how they treat their pilots to the fleet they fly to their maintenance schedule. Everything I know about them is positive. And I've been up there. I was invited into a flight safety symposium in Iceland where I actually did a talk. I've talked to a lot of their pilots. I consider some of them my friends. So I know that this is likely stirring up some quite harsh feelings up there amongst the pilot group as well, because they are as professional as any other pilot that I've ever met. Right. So I think that first of all, they did the right thing by reporting it. And I think that the pilot that the police is likely going to take it seriously as well. And I'm fully expecting this to be like some kind of public endangerment.
Mhm.
Um,
I agree. I agree, and
mhm.
you're absolutely right when you're talking about them reporting it, and people. It's easy to glaze over that, but you look at airlines where there are lots of reports, lots of air safety reports, compared to an airline where there's very few.
Mm.
Give me the airline where there's lots of reports any day,
Yeah,
because
that's why. Like I know I've said this before, but I've done a lot of videos about Air France,
Mm,
about incidents that happened with Air France, but also
mm,
accidents, right? And people are like, "Oh, I never fly with them," and I would say, I would fly with them every day.
Mm,
because the reason I can do incident report is because they have wanted to be public with that. They
mm,
put it out there so that everyone can learn from it, which is why I'm making these videos,
yeah.
right? So it means that there's an air of honesty in that airline. If you
Mm,
find an airline, like you said, that has no safety reports whatsoever,
mm.
mm, big red flag.
Yeah, that's not good. So yeah, watch this space. Maybe we'll come back to this once we know a little bit more. But I mean, potentially going from one extreme on that day to another extreme on the same day. Did you see the British Airways 380?
I know you sent it to me, but I have not seen it.
Okay, yeah,
So
it's cool. You, for those of you watching, you may have seen it already, but we can watch it together and have a little thought. What do you reckon? We can show this on screen as well, I'm sure.
yeah, absolutely. Well,
Have you got it there?
yeah, you sent it to me, so I'm gonna switch it on. So let's
Okay,
see.
let me know when you press play, and we'll watch it together. And we'll go through this of what you think.
Okay, so I am pressing play in 3, 2, 1. Now,
Okay, so coming in from Los Angeles. This is coming into London Heathrow. So in the flare, bit of a crosswind.
yeah.
So
Oh, there we go. That it doesn't start to send it. Oh, it's pretty late. That
yeah, it's very late. So the
very late.
touchdown, no
Touchdown.
spoilers.
No spoilers. No reverses. And there we go again.
Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
the decision being made.
So
So, yeah, thoughts?
uh, great. I mean, do you want to do a bulk landing? No. Or if you're in a position where you think that it is the right thing to do, yeah.
Yeah.
And from what I mean, when I see this, that's what I'm thinking. It's like they're coming in. You can clearly see with the flare. Normally, when you do a flare in an airline, you're not supposed to stop it from descending. You're supposed to descend to arrest the descent rate. It's what it calls, just slowing down the descent rate to have a nice soft touchdown. But when you see him coming into the flare like that, and you see him stopping, you realize, I mean, we eat a lot of runway. If you're not touching down where you're supposed to, if you start flaring and you start to glide down the runway like this, you eat up a lot of runway. So the pilot flying in this case, probably both of them, they realized, okay, we haven't touched down. It's a very heavy aircraft, big, So eventually they touched down too far down for their comfort. Could they have stopped? Probably.
Mm.
But they decided that this is outside of our comfort zone. We're just going to go around. So they nicely let the aircraft touch down. They even let the nose gear come down. It's likely that they have already taken the decision to go around. That's why the spoilers never came up, because they're now increasing the thrust already. But as part of that maneuver, they are landing the aircraft knowing full well that they're accelerating for takeoff. And then it's just a nice takeoff again without any risk of tail strike or anything. This is picture perfect.
Yeah, it's superb. And one thing I think that should really be focused on is they've obviously the correct mindset starting the approach. First of all, there's obviously a good briefing, and they've stuck to that brief. So it's very, if you put yourself in the aircraft, you're coming into land, you're very much focused, obviously, on the landing. It's so easy to get suckered in to just continue and carry on itis, get the aircraft on the runway, land. To make that mental switch in your head to go, no, we're now going to go around, particularly after probably a 12-hour flight.
Yeah.
You're tired, you've been up all night. It really does take a professional pilot to make that decision. So it was such a great thing to see. And to give you some reference, if I just watch that video back again, as you see them come over the runway, you can see some runway markings and what they mean. So there's the threshold now as it comes over. There's two sets of markings. Then there's a big, clear white set of markings. That's 300 meters. Then you see another set of markings, which is 450. Then you see the last set, which are about 600 meters down the runway. And then they touch down. Assuming standard spacing, they probably touch down 650, 700 meters down into that runway. And the correct decision is to go around, because when you do your landing calculation, the landing performance assumes a certain amount of air distance. So what that means is, from the point you cross the threshold of the runway to where you touch down, that is built into your landing distance. And normally the air distance is between 300 and 450 meters. It's often variable nowadays, but certainly not 700. So potentially they've lost, a good 300-400 meters of what they were expecting to use.
Yeah. And it's funny because I can almost hear the comments, the like lawn chair pilots in the comments talking about how what kind of a mistake they must have made in order for this to turn out in a go around. But like you said, opposite to the other videos that we saw, in this case, professional pilots will probably just applaud.
Yeah.
They will just, poof, hard
Great
decision to
job.
make, great execution of a hard decision.
Mm.
Awesome, right? And they will come around, land, and that'll be it. Yeah.
And it's that one decision that can make the difference between a little video like that we talk about and commend to a catastrophic accident.
Yep.
That one decision is historically has been proven.
And that's another thing that I think when people say, well, when a pilot's going to be replaced by AI, or when are we going to see no pilots in the cockpit? And the reason I say that it's a long way away is that these kind of like split-second decisions, sure, a computer could probably do it based on certain parameters as well. But pilots take these decisions all the time, and they're based on things like intuition, experience, knowing traffic flow, understanding a picture that is much, much bigger than just a few parameters.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
and that's what we pilots do. And this is why very little happens. This is why there's very little accidents, very little incidents at all. If you look at the total amount of movements compared to what's happening every day, it's because there's loads of professional pilots like these guys out there doing their
Yeah.
job as they should.
And I think it's a big part of I think it's a big also round of applause to the training departments out there, because they're the ones that are pushing this go around mindset. This, if you're not sure, just go around, come around again and have another go. And if everybody did that, runway excursions would be a thing of the past.
Yeah, we have to do, you and I, we have to learn how to play the guitar and play that go around song. I think that would be awesome. Listen, I'm unfortunately I have to run because I have to give my kid a ride to his training. So before we do, let's take a question or so from the audience, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, good idea.
So I have one here. Pop, 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 pop. If you were to receive a TCAS alert, presumably the other plane will also receive the same alert. How do you decide which course of action to take and know that the other plane will not take the same action? Regards from David.
Good question. Thankfully, we don't need to decide. That's the genius of TCAS, is that it coordinates together.
Yeah.
So it will give one command to one, a descend. It will give a climb command to the other, as long as you both have TCAS. Obviously, if you don't, then only one aircraft will. So if I'm in a conflict with a Cessna 152, as long as that aircraft's got a transponder on board transmitting its height, it will give me avoiding climb, but the other Cessna won't know anything about it. But if it was Petter flying towards me in his 7.3 and I'm flying towards him, he might get a descend and it would tell me to climb, and we would clear each other that way. So it deconflicts for you.
Yeah. So the transponders are talking to each other.
Yeah.
They
work as one.
That is the real genius here. And now soon we will have things like ACAS X coming in, which is a new system, which is kind of the next generation of TCAS, which will be even better.
Okay.
So
I've not seen much.
yeah, well, the EU has just decided to allow it. So hopefully in the next couple of years we'll start to see it coming in. But it gives more spatial information. For example, it gives, instead of just climb, descend, it will. We get traffic warnings now. Traffic. That one will say traffic 2:00 descending 500 meters.
Okay.
So instead of us having to look down, try to figure it out, and then look out into the window and try to find it, now you can just immediately see it.
Nice.
And the same will be on the TCAS screen, showing what its vector, its movement vector.
Right. That's a logical improvement. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that it requires ADS-B in and out.
Okay.
So that, and which will come in a video very soon. So that was a good question. Unfortunately, we don't have time to do many more questions, but keep sending them in. We keep saying that we should have a whole episode of just questions.
We've got so many now. There's so many good ones. We probably could just go and do a whole episode on them, because we have promised. So maybe
we'll take one more. Dear Peter and Ben, I really love the podcast and appreciate the amount of effort that goes into it. My question is, what is, in your opinion, the best and worst part of having a job as an airline pilot? Many thanks to you and your team. Thanks for your amazing work. Cheers from Singapore, Jason.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So, but since I'm not working as a pilot anymore, I do this full time. The reason I took that decision largely was because of my family. Right. So the worst part of being an airline pilot for me was just the knowing that I couldn't schedule around my family. I might have to work weekends. I might have to work Christmas. I might not be able to take vacations when they had vacations, and just like you get a little bit disconnected potentially from your family. Even though in the job I had, it was probably the best I could have had in the industry. But even though, like, you'd get Christmas, okay, you're going to work on Christmas, and that's it. So that was something that I could never really get used to fully.
Mm.
The you,
Yeah.
I mean, the best is just it's just awesome. It's a fantastic job. You have great colleagues. You fly fantastic aircraft. You're at the very forefront of technology. It asks something from you every day that you need to respond to, so you feel the satisfaction inside of you. That no day is similar to the other, even though you do the same routes. You're going to be have a completely different day the other day just because of weather, winds, everything. So
Yeah.
it never gets fully boring.
No, no, I would agree with that. I think downsides just from day to day stuff. Early starts, seeing an alarm clock at 3:30 in the morning is never fun. But once you're up and you're up, yeah, the mornings are lovely. But yeah, I think that's probably not so good. But the goods, Petra and I, we've been doing this for over 20 years. I still get a buzz out of it. I love the challenge. I love it how it challenges me every day. You want to keep performing at the best you can. So you're constantly pushing yourself to be as best as you can. And I love you get the instant results. If you've messed up, well, not messed up, but if you haven't done something as well as you should have done,
Yeah.
you critique it, you
Yeah.
look at what you do differently, you apply it next time. And I love that kind of real time challenge that you get every time you go flying. So I love it.
And you have to keep learning. Yeah, that's the thing as well. You're never done learning. When you think you're done learning, you're done flying.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, I saw it on you now. I mentioned the ACAS-X, and I could see that, like,
Mm,
that light in your eyes. Like, I now have something that I need to look up.
yeah.
I know what it.
Yeah.
No, it's great. So that's a fantastic question, and thanks for
Yeah.
asking it.
Good.
Having said that, again, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors, to Exter. So go and check out partner.exter.com/mentor podcast to get 45% for Mother's Day plus another 20% with the code CAPTAIN. And Ben, thanks a lot for your time.
Absolute pleasure. Likewise. And we will see you next time.
See you next time.
Take care.